Grace and peace to you from Onalaska First United Methodist Church. You're listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoy.
All right, I need you all to stand this morning, greet each other, and as you do, I want you to tell the person you are greeting what your favorite food is. Go! Okay, bring it on back. Bring it on back. What were some things that were mentioned? Call out your favorite. Crab meat. Tacos. I heard fried okra from Ted here. Who else? Sushi. Okay. Pecan pie. Chocolate. Fish. All right, so we got a good mix of things in here. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. All right, here's my favorite. Somebody asked me what my favorite was. My favorite is, I got two. Pizza and cheeseburgers. Like double cheeseburgers with bacon and a lot of cheese dripping off of it. Some of you are cringing. Why are you cringing? Well, I know, that's the point. That's the point. See, now some people, candy and chocolate, desserts, I like those things. I like them, but I can pass up the candy or the chocolate. Chocolate chip cookies, maybe. But pizza and cheeseburgers, I'm telling you. And I'd say that to Elaine all the time, and she goes, I don't even know where you're coming from because that's not even attractive to me. You know, what do you like? What's your favorite? Chocolate. Yeah. Who read the newsletter this week? Anybody see the newsletter? Did you read it? Okay, I talked in there about ramen noodles. My kids like ramen noodles. You're familiar with ramen noodles, right? Ramen noodles.
It's Raymond's ramen.
Ramen noodles. All right, I looked at the nutrition of ramen noodles. Here's what's in it. One package has 400 calories, 50 grams of simple carbohydrates, 14 grams of fat, and 1,000 milligrams of sodium. That's it. That's it. No vitamins, no nutrients, nothing else, just a bunch of salt and sugar and fat. There's a little bit of iron in there, but I just don't, in light of that salt, I don't think it's going to do anything. But my kids love them. And sometimes for special treats, they will say, can we get some ramen noodle? Can we buy some of that? And we'll have it in the house. Why is it that the things that taste best to us are probably the things that we should avoid? Why is that? Any ideas, any thoughts on that? I don't know. Yeah, God's got a sense of humor. You know, I found out years ago that I'm not young anymore. I'm not. When I was a kid, I didn't think twice about what I ate. It didn't matter to me. I ate whatever I could, whatever tasted good to me, and then I would go out and play, and I was fine. I was fine. But something shifted for me. I don't know when it happened exactly. Probably about the time I got married. But I was working at Domino's at that time, and I was eating a lot of pizza and drinking a lot of soda. But something happened. My body started to react differently to the foods I was eating. Now I gain weight. I didn't gain weight as a kid, but I gain weight now. I get cramps in my legs. Oh, cramps at night. I have heartburn almost all the time. I'm constantly popping heartburn pills. Raymond, yeah. And my wife tells me that I snore. I didn't used to snore as a kid, but that's just part of it. And I found for me personally that if I just say, well, I'm just going to taste here and there, it would be good, but I'm going to just taste this cheeseburger, or I'm going to just have one slice of pizza, it usually doesn't work for me. I tend to fall off the wagon, and I eat half the pizza, and I'll probably have the leftovers for breakfast. That's just That's just how it works for me. Our family, once or twice a year, we typically make a commitment to eating healthy. And we will go through the pantries and we'll get rid of everything, throw stuff away, and we'll just try to make a commitment to make sure that we're buying healthy options. In fact, this morning, I had a hard time putting that together because we just didn't have a lot of junk food in the house. We're kind of in one of those moments right now. But the reason we have to do that once or twice a year is because inevitably the stuff starts coming in the house, and before you know it, we've got a case of ramen noodle in the pantry, and we have chocolate chip cookies that, we made for a celebration or, went to a birthday party or something, and it makes its way back into our house. You've heard the old saying, no doubt, that you are what you eat. I think that that's probably true. That's what my body has told me as I've gotten older, that the things that I eat start to affect my actual body. And I think that probably, like I was telling Vivian, I think that probably extends beyond just food, that whatever you consume, whether it is with your eyes or your ears or what you think about or meditate upon, that stuff that is coming in starts to affect you for better or for worse. And this strange attraction that we have toward things that are harmful for us, things that we know are harmful for us, like we know it before we take it. It's always been a part of the human experience. Think about this for just a moment. Adam and Eve, before they sinned, okay? No sin had occurred yet. God says, here's this garden for you, probably the best tomatoes anybody has ever tasted. Watermelons, apples, cucumbers. He says, eat it, any of it, all of it. It's all for you. Just don't eat this one fruit from this one tree over here because it's just not good for you. Don't do it. Where did they go? Straight to that tree. They went straight to that tree. Oh, yeah. Read the story. Guess who was standing right next to her? Adam. She turned and gave it to Adam. He's standing right there like, he's just listening to it. He didn't say a thing. He doesn't say, God said maybe. And it says that Eve looked and said, boy, that's probably some pretty good stuff. We're just attracted to things that are not good for us, even when we know they're not good for us. But I find it very comforting that in that moment in the garden, that God did not abandon Adam and Eve. In fact, he begins right away to show mercy to them. He provides covering for their nakedness and shame. I think even expelling them from the garden, if you go back and read the story, I'm not going to get into it now, but if you go back and read the story, it was an act of mercy. He did not want them to be in that environment in their current state. It was not a good place to be. And so even that was an act of mercy. God does not abandon them in the midst of this bad choice. And I take comfort in that because that means that God does not abandon us when we make mistakes. Before I get into the Bible text for today, I want to set up the scenario just a little bit for you so that you can kind of understand what is happening here. I want you to imagine during World War II that Germany and Japan had won. Okay? Just imagine that for a moment. And then Germany and Japan come to the United States, and what they decide to do as victors in the war is they're just going to demolish the land and take everybody away to their lands, right? So Americans are now in foreign lands being held prisoner. This is kind of where the children of Israel found themselves. It was in 587 BC, so about 600 years before Jesus came. This power from the north called Babylon came down, completely wiped out the city, and then instead of coming and occupying the land, the way that they dealt with prisoners of war was to cart them off. So they took everybody to Babylon and left Jerusalem with just the poorest of the poor, the folks that had no sway or pull or couldn't do anything to Babylon. They left them there with the city just completely destroyed. And so here they are, the children of Israel, in a foreign land. Their temple was destroyed. Now for them, the temple was the place where God was and the place to go for worship. There were no synagogues yet. Synagogues were not a thing. If you wanted to worship God, you went to the temple. Well, the temple's destroyed now. And so they can't worship God. They're stuck in a foreign land. And it was in this place that they began to take inventory of their lives. And they began to wonder if maybe some of the things that they had been consuming or the things that they had gotten themselves into really was the reason that they were in this place. Perhaps God was punishing them for their sins. Now, I just want to say this. I've said this before, but I'll say it again just to reiterate. I don't think God caused Babylon to come down, kill innocent women and children, destroy the temple, and take them captive. I don't think God did that. I do, however, think that Israel had gotten in a bad place. And it was because of this place that they were in that they did not see what was coming. You see, Israel had been freed from oppression in Egypt years and years before. And that story was something that they had heard on a regular basis, that they knew. But at this point in their history, instead of taking care of the poor and looking out for the oppressed, they had become the oppressors, just like Egypt had been to them years and years before. And it was this self-centered way of living, I think, that really blinded them. They were turned inward. They were focused on themselves, probably individually, and maybe a little bit corporately, but it was just like party time for them. And they didn't see the bigger picture that was happening, the danger that was coming. And so 50 years of this situation, of being captive in Babylon, 50 years of just kind of feeling guilty about what they had done and really feeling sorry for themselves, 50 years of wondering if maybe God had abandoned them. They were not able to worship for 50 years. Does God even remember us anymore? And it was in that place and in that moment that the prophet Israel gave them a message from God. And this is what God said to them. If you have your Bibles, you can turn to Isaiah chapter 55. I am reading out of the NIV today. This is what it says. Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. Come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare. Give ear and come to me. Listen that you may live. I will make an everlasting covenant with you, my faithful love promised to David. See, I have made him a witness to the peoples, a ruler and commander of the peoples. Surely you will summon nations you know not, and nations you do not know will come running to you because of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, for he has endowed you with splendor. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call on him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake their ways and the unrighteous their thoughts. Let them turn to the Lord, and he will have mercy on them, and to our God, for he will freely pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. The word of the Lord. Amazingly, after all this time, God says to them, I haven't left you. I never left you. He tells them, I'm about to restore you to your homeland, and I'm going to make a new covenant with you. But I need you to stop feasting on things that are not good for you. I want you to stop trying to fill your lives with self-pleasure at the expense of others. Money, food, sex, injustice, corruption, all those things that cannot satisfy you spiritually. All those things that you have consumed and you have become. And instead, he offers them good food. The best food. Food that brings life and health, and the best of all, it's free. No cost. All you have to do is lay that stuff down and pick this up. And God's not being sarcastic here. You could read that into it. He's being sarcastic, but he's not. He's genuinely pleading with them to turn from their old ways and turn to his way of thinking. Embrace what he has for them. I mean, this is what that would be like. Imagine you have a choice before you. You can go to the grocery store and buy a case of ramen noodles, or 1836 Steakhouse called and said, anytime you want to come eat, it's free. It's on us. Unlimited. Anytime. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? What are you going to do there? Go to the steakhouse. Darn Skippy, I'm going to go to the steakhouse. And the cool thing is, I think, that God says, if you will do this, not only will you be healed, but I will make you radiant. I will glorify you. I will bathe you in splendor so that nations you do not know will come to you because they will sense you have something they don't. They will want to know, what is the secret? Why are you glowing? You know, when somebody does me wrong, or hurts my feelings, or stabs me in the back, maybe you can identify with this, but when that happens to me, my first response is not usually a good one. If I don't out and out say something nasty to them, in my head I'm plotting revenge, or I'm secretly hoping that they'll get theirs. You guys identify with that? I want them to be held accountable for the things that they have done to me. But here's the crazy thing. When we slander or wrong God or stab God in the back, God's response is completely different. God's response is, I want our relationship to be restored, and I want to see you restored to full health. And so that's what I'm going to work toward. I'm not saying God doesn't chastise us, because I think he does, but it's always with that in mind. Chastisement is always about keeping us from doing more harm to others or to ourselves and working our way back to reconciliation with God. God never secretly hopes that we will be miserable or that we will fail, because God does not think like we do. He says, my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are so much higher than your thoughts. You see, God is for us all the time. All the time. God is for us. He's not for some of your choices, but he's for you. He's rooting for you. And he's beckoning us. Put down that stuff that's not good for you and turn to me and receive what I am offering to you. And that right there That's the gospel in a nutshell. God sent Jesus to wake us from our spiritual slumber and gluttony. Jesus came to show us what God is like and to show us that God loves us and is offering us something infinitely greater. And when we turn from that stuff that can never satisfy, that we keep trying to fill this void, when we turn that loose and partake in the salvation He's offering, then He glorifies us and draws other people to us. See, the gospel literally means good news. And that is good news. You know, we've talked a lot over the last few weeks. We're in Lent, and we've been talking about fasting and feasting. In fact, today is the third feast day. Woo-hoo! Third feast day in Lent. So I'm going to eat me some good food today. But fasting during Lent isn't really about food. Not really. In fact, if you take your Bible and if you've kept it open and you just turn 3 chapters to the right, God, through Isaiah, defines what a fast is. In chapter 58, listen to this. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for people to humble themselves? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes? Is that what you call a fast? A day acceptable to the Lord? Is this not the kind of fast I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and to break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. He's flipped it. Fast isn't so much about denying yourself, but it's about freedom. And not just looking how you can participate in the freedom of others, but that includes us as well, because we are captives in many ways. There are things that hold us captive. And God desires all of those chains to be broken. And that's what a fast is. Are you feasting on things that can never satisfy? Are you trying to fill a void with something that just isn't working? God is calling you to lay that down and to try His nourishment, His way instead. Through Christ, He is pleading for you and I to trust Him, to trust His way, because His way is not our way. But it requires trust to give up something that you know isn't good for you, to embrace a different way of living. God is not plotting His revenge against you. He hasn't abandoned you in your sin. He simply asks you to swap out those things that are not good, those things that can never fill the hunger, for something that can. And I think Lent is the perfect time to do that. As the psalmist says in Psalm 34:8, taste and see that the Lord is good. Amen.